few minutes, you're going to see another spectacular stunt from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Just a couple of weeks ago, he, in very dramatic fashion, pretended that he had ripped up the agreement with the Liberals. He put on a big display of theatrics. He called this government weak and tired and too beholden to corporate interests. But then he was asked over and over again whether or not he would actually vote no confidence in this government and give Canadians the carbon tax election they so desperately want. In fact, he was asked 49 times, and he refused to answer. Now we know why. He had to wait until the Bloc Quebecois announced what they would do, because it was all for show. He was never actually serious about putting an end to this corrupt and incompetent government that has doubled housing costs, driven up prices through inflation, and hiked the carbon tax over and over again. He's not going to put an end to that. So he had to wait until the Bloc Quebecois made their decision. And what he's effectively done is he's made his vote completely irrelevant. As long as the Bloc Quebecois vote to keep Justin Trudeau in power, it doesn't matter what the NDP will actually do. It was all a stunt. The only way to provide relief for Canadians, to put an end to the cost of living crisis, to bring down prices and interest rates, to axe the carbon tax, to put an end to the crime and drug crisis in our communities by ending Justin Trudeau's catch and release policies, to lower housing costs by building homes once again in our country, is by electing a common sense conservative government. So don't be fooled by whatever Jagmeet Singh does this afternoon, because he has very carefully stage managed all of this to make sure that he keeps Justin Trudeau in power.
Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh, and I'm grateful to be back on with you yet again on this beautiful, unreal, hot Thursday night. Let's go. Very excited to be able to get into it. Thursday seems like it's going to be the smaller, shorter episode, as we have a few less days to kind of go off of content, things that are happening. But without any further delay, we have a lot to get into. First off, well, Green Slush Fund. It's getting spicy. We've been hearing about it kind of in the background, conservatives looking into it with how corrupt the whole situation is. And the whole situation just got worse. So we'll be getting into that today, which will be very interesting. Secondly, what's going on with that Bloc Quebecois? What's happening? What's going on with the NDP? And then what's going on with their relationship with the Liberals? Are people losing confidence? Well, we'll find out what's going on there. And last but not least, more Liberals are jumping ship. We talked about it on Tuesday. Andy Fillmore here in Halifax. Well, more are leaving because they realize they have a leader who doesn't listen to them, and their careers depend on it. So this and so much more, there's a lot to get into. Let's get on into it. But first, we have a message from one of our sponsors. So from Depth Experience Design, if you are looking for a company to look after your user experience design needs, getting a website done, getting your digital product done, making sure you have the right proper strategy applied, as well as having beautiful graphics, well, then call up Depth Experience Design. You can go to their website, depthxd.com, and that's depthxd.com. And then secondly, Elliott Podcast newsletter. We're getting into it. Not this Friday, not tomorrow. Next Friday, we are kicking it off. So if you would like, go over to our website, find this section where it says, find it when we post, merch drops, and more. Find that section. Ignore the headline because forgot to change it, but put in your first name, put in your email. If you want to be on that email list to get stories that we can't cram into two episodes per week, you can get it in a newsletter right to your inbox on the stories that we may have missed or didn't have time to get into, just so you can stay informed. You can head on over there, put your name in there, put your email in, and we will make sure that you will have the latest stories right to your inbox every Friday. So you get us on Tuesday, then you get us on Thursday, and then you get to read us on Friday. We're stoked about that. We are here. We are pumped. Let's get on into it. First off, we have what's going on in the news. Well, there's a lot going on in the news, and you've probably seen it on a variety of plethora of people covering it, but let's get into it. Israel targets Hezbollah members in Lebanon. On September 17th, pagers carried by Hezbollah members exploded, killing 12 people and injuring over 2,700. I had probably the same reaction that you did when you first saw that. Pagers exploding, causing damage and injuries to 2,700 people and killing 12. Killing 12 of them. There's something going on there. I do know that Israel has a very deep and thoughtful tech scene there, and wouldn't be surprising how they managed to make that happen. I'm sure as more information comes out, we'll be more interested. So we thought that was crazy enough. Then you probably heard more. That a day later, September 18th, walkie-talkies also detonated, resulting in another wave of explosions that killed at least 20 people and injured 450. These devices had been purchased by Hezbollah in an attempt to avoid Israeli tracking, opting for low-tech communication methods instead of mobile phones. The explosions are believed to be part of a covert Israeli operation, though Israel has not officially claimed responsibility. The problem is, while targeted to only pagers held by Hezbollah members, children and others who were nearby Hezbollah members also died and suffered injuries. On the 19th, today, Hezbollah retaliated by firing rockets at Israel, so Israel responded with airstrikes on southern Lebanon. The growing conflict risks spiraling into a larger confrontation, raising concerns about the stability of the Israel-Lebanon border and all-out war with Iran. Yeah. So obviously the stuff that's going on with Israel and the people in the region would be Hezbollah to the north, I believe it was, Hamas to the south, and then Iran funding both groups. Israel, as we know, we've talked about, is fighting a three-front war, essentially. And this is why they require help from the United States and the West, because they are literally the only democracy in that part of the world. Say what you want, this is the politics behind it all. So if they are, quote unquote, the only democracy in that part of the world, then they need defending by the West, who also, quote unquote, believes in democracy. This was kind of a wild way the attacks are taking place. Very covert, very interesting and meticulous. We'll see what happens and how that even came about, how they pulled it off. It'd be very interesting to see. But that's, furthermore, lack of stability in the Middle East. Can we get someone in power of one of the greatest, strongest countries in the world who doesn't want war, and we can end all of this? This is craziness. Goodness gracious. On that front, North Korea tests tactical ballistic missile. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the testing of a new tactical ballistic missile, raising concerns about the country's ongoing military advancements and the implications for regional security. Again, Iran, North Korea, Russia, China. A lot of these countries were not a concern 4.5 years ago. Now all of a sudden, we have all these issues. It's unreal. Now let's bring it back home. Canada's housing market is cooling, which depends on your perspective, is good. Reports this week indicate that Canada's housing market is showing signs of cooling down, with some home sales dropping in several major cities. High interest rates and economic uncertainty are contributing factors. Despite this, prices remain relatively high, particularly in markets like Toronto and Vancouver, of course. And so this is kind of one thing you got to really think about, right? You have the finance minister, quote unquote, at least the figurehead of the finance minister, and Chrystia Freeland came out saying, we hit the target of 2% inflation. We hit the target, and we've been well within the target for the past several months. She's excited about it. Pumped. Two things. which I think the Conservatives should do a better job at trying to hit on. I know they're the ones they're trying their best to dictate when they talk about things and when they don't talk about things. But this is what I've been my response to it. First off, yeah, you brought it down to 2%. Congratulations. Where it should have been in the first place. That's not after 10, 12, 13, 14, 15% inflation that happened beforehand. Inflation, it doesn't just get undone when it's done. So yes, it's 2%, but it's also on top of probably close to 20, 22, 23, 25% inflation on top of that. So things are already expensive and they're still expensive. So when you say you brought it back down to the 2%, well, the reality is everything's so dang expensive that yeah, everyone's tapped. We're tapping out. Canadians are tapping out. So yeah, no one's spending their money. Everyone's miserable. Everyone hates their lives. But yes, you brought it down to 2%. Congratulations. Gee. This is what I thought was really interesting. Reg really wanted this included in today's show. So this is coming right from Reg's mouth. Giant panda birth in Germany. Okay. On a lighter note, twin panda cubs born at the Berlin Zoo have captured attention with their mother, Meng Meng, being celebrated for successfully caring for them. I do not know why Reg wanted that shared. There was no other context to that part of the story. He dropped in 3 lines here saying, Reg really wants this news item talked about. LOL. What a guy. This guy's killing me over here. Gee willikers. Well, that's what's in the news. Let's get into the meat of our show. The Conservatives get blocked. We joked about it. It was in the title of our episode on Tuesday. Liberals get blocked. Pow. Got taken out in that by-election in Montreal. Well, the Conservatives are getting blocked now too. The Bloc said that it would not vote for a motion of non-confidence that would include any mention of carbon tax. Very interesting that they're kind of taking this as a point to stand on. Wondering why. So, Poilievre's response to all this was he simply got up in the House and said, the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Left it at that. Blanchette essentially said that asking the Bloc to support a Conservative-led non-confidence motion would be like asking the Conservatives to vote against the government for not promoting Quebec's independence. Holy jumping. Which highlights this fact. The Bloc prioritizes Quebec sovereignty while Poilievre's Conservatives focus on issues like carbon tax and housing. 2 different goals. One is caring about all of Canada, including Quebec, and the other is just holding up our democracy so that Quebec gets taken care of, quote unquote. Okay. While the Bloc may align with the Conservatives on reducing federal intervention in provincial matters, their primary goal is always Quebec's independence. Plain and simple. Which begs the question, how are they allowed to be a federal party? You are literally causing a delay in our democratic policies, our democratic institutions, because you want things for Quebec. How are we allowed this? How do we allow this? It's bonkers, man. So, this is what Blanchette's summary was really saying. He basically said that it would be illogical for the Bloc to support a non-confidence vote based purely on national issues unrelated to Quebec's independence or provincial interests. Then why are you a federal party? Why are you a federal party? Pretty sure there's something called, I don't know, a premier. And he takes care of, or she takes care of, the needs of Quebecers. Why and why? How do they have a federal party that represents one province? Because you know if Alberta had one of those and actually had a party at the federal level, people would be losing their minds. But hey, it's okay for Quebec because it's been happening for tens of years. Wild. But this is the part that got really interesting, though, with all the stories. The NDP joins Bloc in not supporting Conservative attempt to trigger federal election. Okay? That's where it gets interesting. The Quebec Premier, François Legault, is calling on the Bloc Quebecois to have some courage. Okay? This is the premier. We're talking about premiers of provinces. The Premier of Quebec called on Blanchet to have some courage and tell his quote-unquote comrades in Ottawa to vote for non-confidence. The Premier of Quebec just told the leader of the Bloc Quebecois party at the federal level to grow a pair and vote non-confidence. I thought Mr. Blanchet was looking after the needs of Quebecers. But it looks like the person who's actually who actually is in charge of the needs of Quebecers is saying, please, give us a non-confidence vote. Make sense of that. Well, let's try to make sense of it, shall we? Legault right now is mad about the high numbers of immigrants coming into his province, which he says is threatening the French language. Which is really interesting to hear because typically they don't like all the Anglophones coming in because it threatens the French language. Now we're worried about the immigrants threatening the French language. So they just kind of shifted their ire, which is really interesting. The Bloc Quebecois leader, Yves-François Blanchet, said he won't vote out Trudeau because he is gunning for a couple things. All right, let's talk about them. Pensions. We heard about these pensions. The Bloc says they are reasonably confident that they make a deal with the Liberals to get an increase in federally funded old age security for seniors above the age of 65 years old. In July of 2022, the federal government introduced a 10% increase to OAS for those aged 75 and older across Canada. Quebec wants it at 65 for them only. That would mean they would get both QPP and a larger top-up from OAS at 65 more than the rest of Canada. So here's a question here for you. I can't fault the Bloc for doing this. They're trying to get more money for their people. But this is just bonkers that this is allowed to continue happening the way it has. Second thing they're looking at, immigration cap. So this is where Blanchet and Legault kind of come in conjunction and align on. The Bloc wants an immigration cap at 50,000 new permanent residents. And we went over the numbers last week. It's a lot. The 50,000 is a very low cap compared to the rest of Canada. Immigration control over selection is what they're asking for as well. Quebec as a province wants greater control over who is allowed to immigrate. They want the ability to impose language requirements so they can select immigrants who are likely to speak French and to integrate into Quebec society. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? But just take Quebec out and put Canada in. Interesting. So the one thing that I thought was interesting because of this whole immigration issue is I was talking to some of my friends who are in Quebec and kind of getting their perspective of what's going on. And I was like, okay, this is a joke. Like I'm not happy with this. And they said, yeah, we understand why you wouldn't. Like you're a Canadian. We want decisions for Canada, and obviously one province is holding up everything. But Quebec has a very unique problem than some of the other provinces. Because Quebec's on the eastern side of the country, it shares a pretty long border with the States. Bigger border than Ontario does with the States. They have a lot of asylum seekers that come in. They go into the northern U.S., and they end up at the Canadian border. And because of federal law, if the person comes and just claims asylum, they have to be let in. So on average, Quebec does get a lot more asylum seekers than many other provinces. So just trying to show that perspective a little bit. Still hate it. Still not a fan of it. But just so we know what we're talking about. That is something that they're dealing with and why this is so important to them as well. Right? So what was interesting, though, is we're kind of going to this whole scenario of like, all right, are we going to get a non-confidence vote? Are we not? This, that, the other. Well, Pierre came out in the House and said, Jagmeet should tell Canadians if he's going to sell out again or trigger a carbon tax election. And Jagmeet has now said that he refuses to support a vote of non-confidence. Surprise, surprise, surprise. As we saw the video at the beginning with Andrew Scheer, this was all a performance, which we all saw coming. Mr. Singh has been getting his pointers from Trudeau of how to act. Gonna tear up the supply and confidence deal. Gonna tear up the supply and confidence deal. What's that? Huh? Who's that? Who's there? Oh, right. I tore up the supply and confidence deal. And he has no plans to vote non-confidence. No plans to do it. So the NDP, who's turned out to be a huge joke, the Bloc Quebecois is a huge joke. These two parties are the ones who are supporting this Liberal government in the continuous pain they continue to inflict on Canadians. And yes, you know, I understand that people are mad and upset at Mr. Singh, as they rightfully should, calling him, I don't know, things like a corrupted bastard. It was interesting, though. I didn't get into it on the show last week or on Tuesday. But it was interesting to me that that was the thing that really got Singh going. Like, that's what got him to engage, was being called a corrupted bastard. Is it because it just hits too close to home for you, Singh? Is it just because it might be true? You know, you claim to fight against the greedy CEOs and fight for the working class, yet everything you've done has been the opposite. It is interesting that that was the thing that got you going. But anyways, we move on. This was Reg's take on this whole scenario happening with the Bloc Quebecois and NDP and all this nonsense. And just picture Reg's voice right now. He says, Jagmeet rips up the deal to try and separate himself from the Liberals. Blanchette says, perfect, let's see what we can get for Quebec. Quebec Premier says, it's not worth it. The Liberals are destroying our immigration system right now. Vote them out. Jagmeet says, man, now I can't scapegoat the Bloc for keeping me on my pension track. Because we knew that was coming. So how do we know this? Because the NDP aren't getting anything from Trudeau anymore. Nothing. Meanwhile, the rest of Canada is held hostage by three players. Jagmeet, who only cares about his pension. The Bloc, who only cares about Quebecers' pension. The Liberal MPs themselves, who despise Trudeau but are still supporting to keep their paychecks flowing. Also, anyone else here? They also want their pensions. The ruling class needs to be set up for life, as the rest of the country suffers. As we see people lining up at food banks. I was talking to a gentleman the other day who was begging for change at the streetlight. He was a normal guy, 51 years old. Just needed a little bit extra cash so he could afford his groceries. He was being held up at a hotel for housing because he was made homeless because he couldn't afford the rent anymore. He was going to be able to get into some affordable housing. However, the affordable housing just hasn't been built yet. It still is 2 years out. So he's being put up in a hotel here in Halifax as he waits for his affordable housing to be built. He is in the same boat as many others. He's just trying to live off income assistance to get by. And obviously it hasn't been enough either. And I'm not saying I'm an advocate for increasing income assistance because, well, we're already tapped to the gills as it is as a country. But what I'm saying is clearly we have serious problems here at home. And it's selfish people in Ottawa who are causing the pain and could at any point, say enough's enough. But they decide not to. Because They got to take care of their families. They got to make sure they have their pensions. They got to make sure they have a job. It's unfortunate. In the meantime, it's easy to be angry and frustrated. It's easy to go down that path. 100%. I'm right there with you. But it's the one thing I've said on the show multiple times, and I'll continue to say it now. Continue to look out for your neighbors. It's easy to look way outside. Oh, what's happening in Manitoba? What's happening around the city or happening around the province? One thing you can do is to take care of your neighbors. Make sure people on your street are taken care of. Make sure the person on your left and your right are taken care of. You know that whole airplane analogy. Put your mask on first and help others beside you. Same thing here. Take care of your family first. Take care of your household first. But also look out for your neighbors. And if we can all do that, do those little things, it will make our communities that much better. As I'm off my soapbox, we move on. Back to liberals and politicians that are struggling. Well, liberals jumping ship. Anita Anand is to take on Transport Canada in imminent cabinet shuffle. Here we are. Here we go again. Liberal Party shuffling things up in cabinet. Here we go. In addition to her new responsibilities, Anand will keep her current role as Treasury Board President. So what's happened is Treasury Board President Anita Anand took on additional responsibilities. Holy jumping, these ads are terrible. Anand was officially sworn at Rideau Hall ceremony. Okay, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I'll sum it up. So what's happening here is Pablo Rodriguez, if you remember this guy. Actually, let's just do a little Pablo Rodriguez search here. If you guys can remember who he is. Currently the former Minister of Transport. That's him. So this man is stepping down. He announced his resignation from his position of Minister of Transport today, September 19th. He's heading for Quebec. Kind of like the old Andy Fillmore thing. He's going to provincial politics. Meaning a cabinet reshuffle with Anita Anand and the current president of the Treasury Board is set to take over as Canada's Minister of Transport. This is where things could get interesting. We'll see if the Liberal MPs themselves break rank and vote their leader out who won't resign. I'd be curious to see what happens here. We are set. We find out who's for real and who's not. We find out who cares and who doesn't care. We'll find out who loves Canada and who says that Canada can be third place in my life. Next week, Wednesday, we have a confidence vote in the House. I wish it could be more epic than it sounds, because we know where it's going to happen. But the cool thing is we get to see everyone's hands. We get to see what we're playing with. What would be interesting, though, is seeing everyone who's leaving and jumping ship out of the party right now. It'll be very interesting. Very interesting to see. Screw the Bloc. Screw the NDP. What if the Liberals MPs all break rank and say, let's end the misery? Do you know that would be insane. It would be self-sabotage in a lot of ways for many of them, because none of them would get back in. But man, you could run on that 4 years later, though. Look, I ended that. I broke rank. I chose my constituents over my party. I chose the people over Trudeau. It would be interesting if they could pull it off. We'll see where things go with that, though. Let me know what you guys think is down in the comments. Be curious. It's really populating over here. We're excited to see all of you guys commenting away. Keep going. I'll be sifting through it here at the end of the show. We got one last segment to go through, though. We got the Green Slush Fund here. And if you know what the Green Slush Fund is, well, let's look into the old summary of it. So Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants the federal Liberals to suffer the consequences of a sustainable technology fund that was found to be mismanaged. All right. So on Monday, Conservatives took a step forward toward a potential RCMP investigation by putting forward a non-binding motion calling on the government, the arm's length government funding body, Sustainable Development Technology Canada, and the Auditor General of Canada to cough up documents, in correspondence, financial records, conflict of interest declarations, and more. The documents would be sent to the RCMP, which would not be required to investigate anything. So if you remember properly, kind of what happens here is there was an audit done of this green slush fund, essentially, of a fund that was brought together with taxpayer dollars to fund green energy projects. An audit was done on it a ways back. And there was an audit that covered the foundation's decisions from March 2017 to December 2023, a time period during which SDTC approved $856 million worth of funding for 420 projects. Shout out 420. Just kidding. The audit closely reviewed 58 of those projects and found that 10 of them were ineligible for funding, but still received $59 million of government money. The audit estimates 10% of the projects approved from 2017 to 2023 were ineligible. So there's a lot of money. More taxpayer money just, gone. Disappeared. Fugazi. So, as of late, we've kind of hearing echoes of it behind the scenes. The Conservatives are really looking into it, trying to figure out what's going on and trying to get people to testify on it. Well, this is what's been going on. On Monday, right before question period, Andrew Scheer basically called out the Liberals for not releasing the documents on the Sustainable Development Technology Canada. They postponed the discussion where they weren't, because here we go. This was the interesting part, right? Because this is more fugazi from the Liberals trying to make up stuff to try and prevent people from uncovering their corruption. They postponed the discussion because there weren't enough members in the House at the time. Basically, the chamber was empty, so nice of our politicians to show up on time for the first day back. So Fergus, the House Speaker, agreed to retable it for when people showed up. So here we go, another day had to go by. So hence the discussion today. The Liberals argued the House of Commons exceeded its authority by ordering the government to provide all documents related to the file. The Liberal government House Leader, Karina Gold, coming fresh off of mat leave, stated this request was beyond parliamentary privilege. There's a bunch of money missing, miss. And we're going to get about parliamentary privilege. That's what we're going to make a big deal about. Well, as I said, it shows you how corrupt they are. And she's as corrupt as they come as well. If she's going to cover it up like this, yes, using parliamentary privilege to hide behind a bunch of money missing under their watch. But hey, yeah. Overstepping their bounds. Got it. Andrew Scheer claimed the government violated a lawful order by not providing the requested documents in full. A la, things were redacted, dates were not, were concealed, this, that, the other. He accused the government of altering and redacting some documents, which he believes disobeys the House's powers. Surprisingly, though, both the Bloc Quebecois and the NDP support Scheer's position, calling for Fergus to rule the government violated MP's parliamentary privilege. They must think they can use this to their advantage and draw support away from the Liberals. The Bloc insists that whether or not the RCB uses the documents is irrelevant, but the government is obligated to respect the House's order and provide unredacted records. So Gold then said that passing documents to the RCMP for potential investigation oversteps the role of Parliament and threatens the separation of powers between the legislative branch and law enforcement branches. But the reality is, they're wrong. They just don't want to be charged. They're making up BS excuses, even though they're completely in the wrong. This slush fund is just reeks of corruption. Reeks of people stealing from us. In the name of green energy. They say it in the House all the time. Pierre Poilievre doesn't have a plan for climate change. And people eat it up. So what was your plan for climate change, Trudeau? Oh, I was going to slap a 61% carbon tax on it. I'm going to put together a green energy fund. And I'm going to funnel all the money to my buddies. That's his environment plan. That's his green energy plan. But yeah, we're just going to focus right on Poilievre, not quote unquote not having a plan, even though he does. That's how politics works. It's a greasy game out here, man. It's a greasy game. If the Speaker rules in favor, it could lead to a legal showdown between Parliament and the government over the jurisdiction of the House of Commons, which is crazy. Side note, how is a Liberal Speaker allowed this much power over an investigation in his own party? Like, we all know that there was all that corruption and stuff with like him, like kind of not really having a clear delineation between his role as a Speaker and when he was working as an MP. Like, how is this allowed? That's a question that we have. But the RCMP spoke up. And this was where it got interesting again. The RCMP commissioner stated that records obtained through the House's motion might be unusable in a criminal investigation, as their collection could breach a suspect's charter rights. Which leaves us saying this. WTF. Where's the fairness? This is absolute BS. It's crap. RCMP running cover for the Liberal Party. Like, we see what's going on. Clear as day. An audit was done. And we're just gonna keep trying to hide. We need people to be charged over this. We need people brought in front of court over this stuff. We need a hearing on this stuff. But Karina Gold's going to fight to try and protect everybody from whatever witch harm. The RCMP is saying, we'll see. Yikes. If that's how the RCMP is going to act, then me as a Canadian citizen have only one thing to say. Disband the RCMP. Gut it. Right to the bare bones. And let's rebuild with true motivations. With pure motives. Have real accountability. And build anew. There's been too many times the RCMP has done some very shady things for the past 4 years, let alone the past 9 years of this government. They're clearly corrupted. We need to take care of that. But that's it. That is the show, y'all. Really appreciate y'all joining us. Well, we got one wild card for you. Dropped to us by Reg. Let's see what this has to say. Let's see what he dropped us.
We hope you've enjoyed your Brat Girl summer. Besties, are you fed up with your fugly blinds? We understood the assignment. Say less.
All right, just for the audio listeners. This is a Gen Z script written up for an older man who's running a blinds company.
These wooden shutters are giving me life. These blackout blinds are serving. Pop off, Queen. These fabrics are very demure, very mindful. So much riz. Ayrshire Blinds is the goat, and all at affordable prices. No cap.
Well, that was that. Thank you, Reg, for that. I really appreciate that. We love to see older people throw the all younger slang on for change. It's good times. Let's pop over here to the chat as we finish off our show today. So super chats coming from Nicholas LeBlanc. Nicholas LeBlanc. Money for the cause of consequence. Yeah, baby, we're here for it. $5. Thank you for the homies. Appreciate it. JD says, you the man, Josh. Well, appreciate it, man. We're here for it. Question, Elizabeth Morgan says, how are they Bloc holding all Canadians hostages? Why? It's a great question, right? It's a great question. Chris Johnson says, hey, glad to catch a live show. Love the show. Yeah, happy to have you. I'm glad you're able to enjoy. Mike McKenzie says, do not put your faith in man. They will fail you. Faith in the one who controls your soul, Jesus. All this is about God's battle against evil. Amen, brother. JD says, that sounds pretty racist, the Quebecois. Yeah. Don't say that too loud. This is the Quebecois. They're trying to preserve the language here. Oh, man, freaking Quebecois. Do you think the pension is all there? We don't know if they gambled it away. They don't trust the government one little bit. Say, I don't trust the government one little bit. You're right. We have no idea if there's any money in our Canadian pensions. I don't even know if I couldn't speak for the QPP. We have no idea. It could all be gone. It could all be, you were in Ukraine for all we know. Nicholas says, I can't share my opinions. I'm going to be imprisoned. I like not being in prison. Fair play, dude. Fair play. Mike McKenzie says, elites are elites that are the farthest thing from elite. Yep. Luke Liss, yeah, you caught me on that. Missaying that one there. And last but not least, Mike McKenzie again says, no one in my town needs a thing. All Masons. I live in the wolf's den. Fair play, big dog. Fair play. Well, that was a good show, y'all. We're really grateful for your time. Grateful for joining us. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going for a jog or listening to another audiobook or enjoying life, hanging out with your family, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, have a great weekend. I'm out.